I have a confession. I was not the best student growing up. I mean, I did enough to get by. But if I'm being honest, school ranked a distant third in priority to sports and girls. I mean, take history class, for example. I was usually this kid. And there were certain subjects guaranteed to put me to sleep. Greek mythology, Atlas, the Titan who lost the war to the Olympians and was punished by Zeus to carry the heavens for all of eternity. Kind of unrealistic, don't you think? Not to mention unfair. I mean, no one can carry that kind of burden alone. Then something happened on my 18th birthday that changed everything. History came alive. My older brother John gave me this birthday gift, a 160-year-old pocket Bible carried by a Union soldier in the Civil War. The moment it touched my hands, I didn't just feel its history. I felt the courage of a soldier who dared to believe that faith and values could sustain him amidst complete chaos. I wondered, did he turn to it in moments of fear? Did its words give him strength when the world around him was falling apart? I would think to myself, if only this book could talk. What did it see? What would it say about the man who carried it? In an instant, history came alive for me in a way I never expected, and it sent me on a path of discovery to not only study history, but to remember its lessons in order to help chart the course for my future. Just 1 year later, I found myself in Europe, standing on the grounds of Auschwitz in Poland, the largest concentration camp of World War II, where over 1.1 million people were brutally murdered during the Holocaust. I remember standing in front of a glass case full of thousands of shoes, each one a reminder of a life taken too soon. Perhaps the most haunting were the mounds of human hair taken from the victims. It was a stark reminder that the Nazis sought to not only take their lives, but their dignity and their humanity. Standing in the remains of the gas chambers and the crematoriums, I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow and anger. These structures were built for systematic murder on an industrial scale. As I left the grounds, I was struck by a quote from philosopher George Santayana that was prominently displayed at the exit that said, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." As I stood there, I realized a failure to lead with values, to protect and serve humanity, are what led to such atrocities to happen, and that leadership is a responsibility we cannot ignore. We must embed this history into the very fiber of our being and stand together in shared values and purpose in times of crisis. Over the years, I've been captivated by leaders who rose during history's defining moments. Their courage and conviction were not rooted in power, but in aligning their actions with enduring values. Abraham Lincoln faced a fractured nation, yet amidst the chaos of war, remembered the foundation of our nation's Declaration of Independence, and he turned to the core principle that all men are created equal, laying the foundation for unity. Rosa Parks and her quiet defiance of systemic oppression ignited a movement by demonstrating the power of moral courage and collective action. Dr. Jonas Salk remembered that past medical advancements focused more on treating diseases rather than preventing them, and decided to prioritize the well-being of our nation over personal gain, developing the polio vaccine, securing our health and prosperity. These leaders were not lone heroes. They were catalysts for movements grounded in a greater purpose. I believe we're at a new inflection point in history, a time where we need a different kind of leadership to face the challenges ahead of us. But I believe it's important for us to remember the lessons from the past so that we can help chart the course for our future. In 1964, Ronald Reagan gave a speech that historians have titled A Time for Choosing. Now, this was before Reagan ever ran for public office, but it was a speech that propelled him into the public spotlight. It was his explicit attempt to explain our time to make a choice for how America would stand in the face of communism and the threat it posed to our freedoms. And while that threat certainly still exists, I believe his speech strikes a parallel to a far greater threat facing us today. It's a threat from within. It's an erosion of leadership in our country, specifically values-based leadership. Reagan said, "We're at war with the greatest enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars." And it's been said, if we lose this war, and in so doing, lose this way of life of ours, then history will record with the greatest of astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Today we face a different kind of war. One not fought with weapons, but with apathy. I believe we're in the middle of the greatest cultural erosion of leadership in history, and our time for choosing is now. Values-based leadership is not about power or popularity. It's about service, responsibility, and aligning our decisions with principles that inspire action and impact. But leadership like that doesn't just happen. When values erode, so does our ability to lead effectively. And today we see the evidence all around us, and the numbers prove it. Leadership is eroding in our businesses. PwC found that 77% of CEOs say the number one threat to business is not a lack of technical knowledge, but rather a lack of key leadership and soft skills. Think about this. We're plenty smart enough. The number one threat to business are the very skills required to serve and impact our teams. Leadership is eroding in our government. Pew Research found that as of April 2024, just 22% of Americans trust the federal government to do what's right most of the time. This erosion of trust shows how critical values-based leadership is to rebuilding faith in our own institutions. Leadership is eroding in our families. Pew Research shows 1 in 4 children in the United States grow up in homes without a father. This figure has more than doubled since 1960, underscoring how leadership, or its absence, affects our most fundamental social unit. These are not only statistics. These are things we feel in our workplaces, in our communities, and even in our homes. Our security and prosperity are not only threatened by global adversaries, they're eroding from within. And if we choose to do nothing, history will record with the greatest of astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. This is our time for choosing. We need to redefine our approach to leadership. When Texas A&M opened its doors in 1876, it wasn't just another university. It was a place built on core values of respect, excellence, leadership, loyalty, integrity, and selfless service. These are core values carried in honor by all students and faculty, past and present. When I arrived on campus as a student athlete for the football team, I was blessed to be coached by one of the finest men and leaders I've ever known, the winningest head football coach in Texas A&M history, R.C. Slocum. Coach Slocum taught us a lot, but his most powerful leadership lessons were about taking personal responsibility. He would tell us, before you point fingers, use your thumbs. Leadership and accountability starts with us. Before we look outward, we must first look inward. Coach would tell us that true leadership is when you serve your teammates above yourself, shed your ego, and elevate the team for the greater purpose. Because team was really just an acronym for together, each achieves more. This is values-based leadership. Leadership is not power. Leadership is not a role you earn in your company. Leadership is service. Leadership is responsibility. Leadership is taking personal responsibility to serve others and align to a set of values that propels the team forward. Because together, each achieves more. This is where I usually hear this. Sounds good, Chris. But how can an entire nation do this? There's too many people. There's too many differences. You're right. There's a lot of us, and we are different. Different backgrounds, different upbringings, different nationalities, different languages, different political beliefs. But at the core of humanity, at the depths of our souls, when everything is stripped away, we are all searching for the same things. And times of crisis have a way of bringing focus to the values that are most important. For over 90 years, the Texas A&M bonfire was Aggieland's most cherished tradition, celebrated before the annual football game against the University of Texas. It contained over 5,000 logs, reached heights of up to 100 feet high. It weighed nearly 15 million pounds. It took months of planning to build. It was far more than a fire. It was a powerful representation of pride and teamwork, an unwavering commitment to the core values of Texas A&M. But on the morning of November 18th, 1999, at 2:42 a.m., tragedy struck. The bonfire structure collapsed while students were working on it, killing 12 Aggies and injuring 27 others. That morning, as the football team was preparing to practice, we heard that help was needed at the bonfire site in an emergency effort to move logs and clear the way for rescue teams. Without hesitation, we raced to the site. What I witnessed that day will stay with me forever. We worked for hours moving logs. But I noticed something really important. The football team, made up of individuals who could bench press over 500 pounds and squat over 700 pounds, could not lift those logs alone. It took every single one of us together to move each and every log. That day, I learned what it meant to be part of something bigger than yourself. That day defined the word team. Backgrounds didn't matter. Nationalities didn't matter. Upbringings didn't matter. What language you spoke did not matter. Who you voted for did not matter. An alignment on values mattered. Service mattered. It was a reminder that the core values of Texas A&M, or as we say, the spirit that can never be told, isn't just in our traditions, it's in the way we serve in the face of challenges together. It's about realizing that in the face of unimaginable weight or impossible circumstances, we only succeed when we stand together, when we serve together. Can a nation align on a set of values? Yes. But where does it begin? It begins when we use our thumbs. Leadership starts with us and with an honest assessment of our own egos and agendas. My favorite professor at Texas A&M, Dr. Rick Rigsby, who was also the life skills coach for the football team, used to tell us a great quote about ego, because ego was destructive in the nature of the ability to perform at its best. He used to tell us, ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. And because every time he would tell us that quote, he would say this, I'll repeat it to you. You might have a relative or a colleague that you might want to share that quote with, so let me go ahead and repeat it. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Leadership begins when we set aside our egos and agendas and choose values that unite rather than divide. We must choose to lead with responsibility and service to each other, because if we don't, History will record with the greatest of astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. This is our time for choosing. Since my brother's gift all those years ago, I've now collected over 200 Bibles carried on the front lines during every American conflict, from the Revolutionary War through Afghanistan, along with countless artifacts throughout history, each one with their own story and their own lesson about charting the course for the future. This is a pocket Bible carried by a U.S. soldier on the front lines during World War II. This is a German pocket Bible, carried by a German soldier on the front lines during World War II. Two soldiers who, if they met on the battlefield, were ordered to kill each other, each carrying the same book with the same words. Words they both depended on, values they both aligned on. Values like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Times of crisis have a way of bringing focus to the values that are most important. Hear me clearly. Evil must always be rooted out at its core. But maybe, just maybe, the values that could unite a nation, perhaps even the world, are far greater than the differences that divide us. Perhaps then, in the face of unimaginable weight or impossible circumstances, or when the weight of the world is put on our shoulders, we don't have to go it alone. This is our time for choosing. And my challenge to you today is this: use your thumbs. Set aside your ego and your agenda. And understand that this is our time for choosing, this is my time for choosing, and this is your time for choosing. And do what my coach used to tell us to do. What you can put off to tomorrow, do today. And what you can do today, do it now. And I challenge all of you today, right now, to make your choice. Thank you.